Super excited today to bring you to one of the people in this country who's doing some of the most interesting work for student success and who's really helping institutions be able to kind of grab their bootstraps and try and move forward on transforming their campus to help the students that we're all worried about in the future. And that is Dr. Yolanda Watson Spiva, who is the president of Complete College America. So I'm super excited to introduce you to her. And today we're going to learn some things from her about what they do. Also, how do you survive such a really difficult job and kind of just, chat. So thank you, Yolanda, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Bridget, for having me.
Okay, so for people who don't know, Complete College America. Now, it's not, first off, kudos on the name actually being pretty clear. But what does that actually mean in terms of, some of these folks might know a little bit about the UIA, but so how should they look at you in the ecosystem of, are there certain colleges you work with? Do you work with policymakers? Tell us, who is CCA?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to, lots of folks think we work with students to help them complete college, and we want to impact students, but we don't work directly with students. So we work with institutions because the model has been that we need to build a better student so that they can be better prepared for college. And certainly we believe that students should be prepared for college, but our mission is to build a better institution, to help institutions transform themselves such that they can receive students of difference, particularly those students who in the past had not necessarily been those who were necessarily in college. And so those low-income students, those who have been traditionally underrepresented, like those who are returning back to college, minority students, all the types of students, disabled students, those students who typically haven't had to overcome barriers in order to engage with college. We believe that institutions need to change and retrofit their model to accommodate these new students. And so how do you change so that those students can be successful in your environment? And so that's the work that we advocate for. And to your question, we work with institutions, we work with policymakers, we work with state higher ed agencies. And so we're essentially trying to impact the policy ecosystem as well as the institutional infrastructures to make sure that they are flexible and nimble enough to receive new students and help them be successul.
Awesome.
To complete college.
So what's something that you've learned from your work recently that has been interesting to you, or that, maybe just if people are trying to think of something that would, help them improve their work, is there anything that you could offer them?
Well, I think it's about really having a growth mindset, and I haven't learned that recently. I mean, I think we've all been familiar with that literature, that body of literature, but I think actually working with institutions and seeing those that are flexible in the way that they're thinking, they're student focused, they're thinking about what the user experience is, and the user in this instance would be the student. And so they think about what it takes for a student to actually navigate a complex system such as post-secondary education and what their experiences are in certain courses. And so when they put themselves in that mindset and think about what that's like for a student. And I have a number of colleagues who are doing a number of learning to learn and learning camps around embedding faculty members into those sorts of experiences. And they're trying to double and triple their performance on reading, writing, et cetera. Those faculty members are going really back to college and learning that, oh my God, I'm putting my students under so much pressure. I'm realizing now that how that pressure can actually break them, and those students will end up being stopouts or dropouts. And so I think that having the end user perspective and putting themselves in the space of the student really helps them to really be flexible about their curricula, go back and revise their syllabi, think about the way that they're providing information, and really thinking and looking at those. If you have students who are getting D's, F's, or withdrawing, think about it may not necessarily be the student. It could be your curriculum or the way that your teaching style is impacting the student, and thinking about the workload and that sort of thing. So I think I've just been hearing lots of stories about faculty members and administrators who are being more introspective about what the experience is like, and realizing that asking the question, are we erecting barriers to completion, or are we actually facilitating students' success toward completion?
Awesome. So using growth mindset, but actually to think about the institution, that's something that I don't think people are talking about. So that's very cool. All right. So this is the other kind of hot question I'm always curious about. We always have lots of different people that we interact with and work with, and sometimes it feels like people work against us. And sometimes it would be like, I'm always trying to wonder whose opinion would be really helpful to change, and what would you want to change? So when I think about this, I think about anyone who looks at colleges who think that people who work at universities are adverse to change, or they don't actually care. Like, I would change people's mind about that, because I feel like people genuinely on the ground really do care. And I would just wave a wand on that. Is there any constituency that you think that there's a really strong view that boy, it'd be really helpful if we could change this one thing?
Well, I would say two groups. So one, to your point, the skeptics who really think that institutions are just so intransigent that they don't want to change. Change is hard for anybody. And I've found it in all types of organizations, not just higher education institutions. I mean, heck, change is hard in your own home. If you have to move, that's a big change, right? And so having to relocate somewhere is a big change. So I think that even when you know you have to do it, you know you need to do it, being able to actually get out of that sort of comfy place. And sometimes it's easier to stay where you are. It's comfortable. It feels sometimes even you can delude yourself into thinking that you're doing the right thing and at the right clip or the right pace. And so that's why disruption and innovation is important. But I think those who, once they get into that space, they're very, very much willing to embrace that. I would also say I'd like for all of the folks who think that that say that college is no longer valuable or college is not necessary. Those are the folks whose mindsets I want to change, because it's easy to say that, but if you don't have a college degree, we can talk to those who do not have post-secondary, any sort of post-secondary credential and what their experience is, and compare that to those who have it. I mean, it's easy to say it and tell someone else that they don't need it until we see the differences that happen in terms of not just earnings, social, economic mobility, healthcare, all the different benefits that accrue or to those who have some sort of post-secondary education. I just want to disabuse that notion that college is some sort of luxury that everybody's this is no longer the days when people were doing college just for knowledge sake. This is really about being able to change the lifestyle of your family, your immediate nuclear family, but also if you're in poverty, you can really disrupt generational poverty by being a person who has a post-secondary credential. So that's the group that I would want to wave a magic wand and tell them, stop saying that it's not true.
I so agree. Oh my gosh, I was just like, yes. All right. So I did want to ask this question because you and I had a conversation last week or so, and I was just seeking your advice per usual in the circle that we live in, Scaling Partners. And you recommended a book about working remotely, because we both are virtual workers and my whole team are virtual workers at times. What is the book? And can you share a little bit about what you learned from that? Because that was super helpful for me.
Sure. The book is called Remote, and the subtitle is Office Not Required. And it's talking about the changing of our workforce, and that if you think about it, most of us either work from remote locations already, or we hire remote workers who are either consultants or part-time workers who help to support our workforce. And so he basically talks about the company that he runs, which is an international company that has employees deployed all across the world. And so they work across time zones, across different languages, different cultures, experiences, and yet they are achieving great success. And so he talks about the fact that we've been sort of bought into this concept that we have to be tethered to a bricks and mortar office, and that, of course, we're driving up our expenses with that model, especially in the nonprofit space, where we're typically very averse to thinking outside of the box in terms of space. You know, space in education and higher education writ large, space defines, you know, your role, your title, if you have a corner office, if you have a window, if you have a cubicle, how close it is to the window. I mean, all those sorts of things sort of define us. And this sort of gets us to think outside of the box about what space means and how it defines us as an organization, but also as individuals and individual contributors. What he also talks about, which I found amazing, was about research they had done about productivity. And that most of us, while we're in the office, if you think about the number of times that you get pulled aside for impromptu huddles and meetings and that sort of thing, you are actually losing your productivity, and that the folks who are doing the remote work were actually more productive. And so he talks about times that you can come and touch in and have huddles, and you can do that at any place. It doesn't have to be an office that you pay rent for. It could be at a Starbucks. It could be at a local library. It could be at a restaurant, wherever you'd like that to be. But there also could be more intentional huddles. So if you're dispersed widely across a nation or across the world, then you could have intentional sorts of touch points, such that you have time like a home week where you're in a particular locality at the same time, and you're really doing some strategic planning or teaming together in order to impact some sort of outcome. So I found the book to be fascinating. And as I'm talking with my team, you know, I have a number of folks who would love to work remotely. And, you know, I think we're basically trying to create an environment where they feel comfortable doing that. We trust them. Trust is a very big part of that, I have to say. So you have to have people who are able to take control of their own time planning and scheduling, and be very responsible and responsive to the work environment. But also you have to trust your employees that they're going to do the right thing and at the right time. And the last thing I would say about it is that, we're already basically in a 24-hour, not just news cycle, but a 24-hour work cycle. And so being able to understand that employees work in a remote environment, employees can really work at different paces and at different times, and being able to accept that a person may be working from 5 a.m. till 2 p.m. and somebody might work from 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. And so what does that look like in terms of getting the work done? And what's the most important part of it? Is it outcome and impact, or is it being able to say that you can count who's sitting in a seat from 9 to 5?
Yeah.
Good question.
That's so good. And higher ed in particular, it's really hard to get universities to be open to this because they aren't.
Yes.
They're very obsessed with place as the indicator of performance.
Yes.
There's a TED Talk. I will link it below once I look it up. But there was a guy who he asked just a very basic question of when the last time you had to do a really intense focus task, where did you do it and where? And no one answers that question between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. sitting in my office. It's early in the morning, it's on my balcony, it's sitting in my bed, it's on in a coffee shop. And so obviously people know themselves, or they've figured out how to get into flow state. Yes. And I tell my team, I'm like, I just want you to figure out what flow state looks like for you and design your life so that you can, for on behalf of UIA, get into a flow state as frequently as possible. And I will take 3 hours of flow over 8 hours of sitting.
Oh my God.
Refresh.
Yes. Because the thing is that it's really about the income and outcome and impact. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care where you're working from. I don't care I don't get caught up into that because I love powerful work that's going to be disruptive and it's going to get us to the change and transformation that we're talking about. And so again, like you said, the flow state, we all know when you're writing, when you're working, anytime I'm working on anything that's really intense, I need to be in a rhythm, in a place that makes me like a happy place that makes me feel good, where I can really work and get in that flow. So you're absolutely right, Bridget. 100% agree.
Awesome. All right. Well, I feel like this is going to be our imaginary TV show that we're going to start.
Yes.
University is on how to finally detach from their antiquated notion of this is what it means to work and to show up in the work. All right. So
Bridget, I'll say one more thing too. Don't forget, part of the place-based sort of notion is also we invest so much in edifices, bricks and mortar buildings, that we almost have to justify their existence by keeping them filled. So that's another thing that I think is just part of, how we evolved as organizations, that we feel like we have to justify the things we invested in over time.
Yeah, I mean, universities are property managers in many cases, and it can help at times, but it frequently can hold us back in terms of innovation because we need to make hard choices. Our students showing up at those hours in a physical location that might not any longer work for where the rest of the community has been. I mean, I just think it's uncomfortable, but we got to ask those questions.
That's right.
Okay, so the rapid fire, the last two. One, I'm looking for a hot tip that allows you to survive the crazy life that we have to lead. You're running a big national organization. People are everywhere. Universities are everywhere. You got a lot of stuff to do. How do you survive? Is there a tip that has helped you be able to get through the day and feel like you feel good?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of prayer and meditation, first of all, but also I love running. And so when I talk about getting in a headspace, I mean, when you're running, you're sort of, whether you use music, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but I love I like to do it outside and just have nature and sounds and just natural sounds and just to sort of be in my own headspace and thoughts. And I can really think through a lot of things that I'm sort of cogitating on. So that's two of the things that I do.
I love it. That's good. Okay. And I was going to share with you when we talked the other day, the thing that's helping me lately is the balance board that I use.
Yes.
And members of my team do too. And so, because when you do a stand-up desk, your lower back starts to hurt. And so you might see me in a conference call just back and forth a little bit. And it makes it so that I'm using my abs, which are muscles recently discovered. That's my tip for surviving is that I'll be in a long conference call, but I'm actually kind of getting a little mini workout.
Yes, love it.
So, yeah, I sent you that link, right? Yeah.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Last question. You travel as much as I do. Do you have a travel hack? Mine is compression socks. Is there anything that is at least makes your life a little bit more okay when you're living in airports?
Well, for me, I just, the whole concept of arriving 2 hours early and people are like, oh, I hate that. I love that. I mean, it gives me time to actually just sort of sit and decompress. So I'm really obsessed about getting to the airport very early. And so if it's an international flight, the 3 to 4 hour tip, I'm actually following that. If it's domestic, I'm doing the 2 hours or more, just so that I have time. I mean, if I want to do some work, if I want to get some calls done, I mean, I really have time to just sort of sit down. I cannot stand the running through the airport and trying to make a flight and you're all sweaty and your makeup is messed up. No, you want to be relaxed and you want to look good, you want to feel good, and you want to be prepared and ready for wherever you're going. So I just think giving yourself the time and space. Don't try to schedule a meeting an hour before your flight. It's not worth it. Try to make sure that it's something, if you do, that you can do remotely on your phone or something. But you don't want to be, just getting out of the Uber and running into the airport right before your flight. Don't do it.
Okay, this is good advice. You and Michael Collins have both convinced me to start getting to the airport earlier, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Again, folks, this is Dr. Yolanda Spiva. Taught me today it was Spiva like diva.
Yes.
Yolanda Watson Spiva,
Yes.
the president of Complete College America. I'm so delighted that you were able to share with us your ideas, hear a little bit about CCA. I think that this turned into a fire episode about remote work. So we need to elevate the conversation and get more people thinking about this and how we do it more effectively. So thank you so much for being here. And where can people find you on the interwebs?
Sure. You can find me at CCA Pres Yolanda. You can also find our organization at CompleteCollegeAmerica.org. And if you follow me at CCA Pres Yolanda, you can find all the other social media. Thank you so much.